Hello and welcome to this demo. So what I'm starting out here is actually doing a little thumbnail. I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep this photograph reference from Ilona E Stefan as a landscape or as a portrait, and I was just jiggling around the shape of the apples. So what I did is I grabbed some ingress paper. I can't stand this paper to paint on. I use this as scrap paper basically. I bought a pad of it once and I won't buy it again. It's got that horrible texture, it doesn't hold layers, it's not my favorite. And I did two little sketches just to see which composition I preferred, and I decided to go with the original reference photo, having the three apples in sort of like a landscape. So yeah, it's really useful when you're a bit unsure. You can just quickly sketch something on a piece of paper, sketch a few little options and see which one you like best, and then use that for your actual painting. So I'm working on the sienna color of Pastelmat here, and I did obviously a dog, and I redecided, oh, I'm going to use this, I don't like this, I'm going to use it for something else. So I'm just putting my pastel straight over that. The size here is the A4-ish size, so 24 centimeters by 30 centimeters. Excuse me. And I'm using a mixture of pastels. I'm using the Terry Ludwigs. I'm using some Mount Vision. So using blues that have quite they're like navy blues and slightly grayed out blues for that background. And then I'll be popping in more of true blue blues, I guess. True blue blues, more bluey blues, there we go. And then obviously some bluey grays, just to create that background, wanting everything nice and soft. That little sketch that I'm doing right now is just for me to kind of place where I want the foliage to go, as well as putting in the stem of the apples in the back there. Notice how I haven't just drawn a straight line on the stem. I've cut it up. I've used jagged strokes. It just gives it more of an authentic look. So as always, I'm working with the background first, putting in my darkest values and putting in the background. And just putting in shapes. I've been very busy with commissions this month, so this apple painting is just for me. So I'm not concentrating that much, which I know sounds a bit odd, but you know, when you've got a commission, I don't know, you are just concentrating so much more. Obviously, I'm looking at my reference photograph and copying as close to what I can see. But I don't know, it's more chilled, it's more relaxed. So I'm using a lot of Mount Vision reds and Sennelier reds. Beautiful, they got a beautiful selection of reds and reddy oranges. And then for the shadows in here, which you'll see I actually end up taking out because they were just too harsh, and I just feel it wasn't working for the painting. But I'm using some grey 13, which is a Unison color, and I'll always use that color. That color, I don't know, I use it in a lot for shadows. It's a very dark browny black sort of color. But also you'll see my shapes here, it's looking more like an orange. See, apples have more of a flat top, so you'll see I'll start to change the shape of these apples because I want them to look like apples, not oranges. But that comes together, you know, as you go along. You can tweak. That's what I love about pastel. As you go along, you can tweak mistakes. You can correct mistakes, tweak little parts of the painting you're not happy with. So yeah, really versatile. I love this medium so much. Again, just playing around with some greens. I'm adding there greens that have a lot of blue content in them, because if you look at the reference photo, you've got both. You've got greens that have more of a yellowy, but the majority are greens that have more blue in them. So I'm just sourcing out through my pastels, picking out my greens, looking at my greens and going, okay, that green looks like it's got more blue, and then I just whack it onto the paper, see how it looks. That is my method right there. And this is one of my favorite colors. It is 643 by Mount Vision. It's like a gorgeous gray blue, and I absolutely adore it. And then that's another Mount Vision that I've just put down there. It's a dark sort of navy color, and that one's midnight blue, I believe. Then Sennelier, just making shapes. As you can see, I'm just looking at the shapes. I'm not trying to necessarily draw a leaf as such. I'm looking at the shape and I'm trying to mimic that with my pastel strokes and building it up. So going from a dark to a mid-tone and then to a light, just to see how everything is looking. You'll find then I will go back in with the darker to darken up some areas, back in with the mid-tone, and then back in with the light, just building up the painting layer by layer. That's how I do it. And like I said, working on the pastel mat with pastels, it's just makes your life so much easier because you can correct mistakes. So just adding in the twig again there because I lost it. And like I said, here's my grey 13 I'm using from Unison. And I was trying to make these shadows work. You know, in a shadow, you don't really want a block of the same color. You've got to have some variation in that shadow for it to look more realistic. And I find these shadows for me, they just weren't working for the painting. It just wasn't working. So you'll see I actually get rid of them altogether. Takes me a while to figure, but I'm having a play. I'm giving it a good go and then deciding, yeah, no, this is not working. I don't like it's your eye is drawn straight to those shadows, and that isn't what I want. I want your eye to be drawn to the two apples where the sunlight is hitting them, which you'll be able to see when I start to paint that a little bit later on. But as you can see, I got rid of those and I think the painting is much better for it. So using the Terry Ludwig's in there for the dark reds. It's from the Dark Intense 2 range. At the bottom you can see there's a lot of shadow. Now I wanted to go for red because the apples are predominantly red. So it made sense to use a very dark red in there rather than a brown or a black. And then just creating also the shadow. And I used a lot of the Sennelier from the portrait set actually. It's the half stick set. They've got some beautiful reds in there, as well as like this color I'm using now is like an ochre sort of color. Because if you look at the base of the apple, you can actually see like a greeny gold in there, which is quite a tricky color to get. But of course Sennelier come through because their color range is just spectacular. I absolutely love them for their, I love all my pastels actually, but yeah, Sennelier are amazing. So just darkening up, putting that little core, the bottom of the core of the apple, and hopefully it's starting to look a little bit more now like an apple rather than an orange. Using a mixture of yellow, like golden yellow, as well as oranges and orangey reds to create the skin of the apple. And as you can see, I'm not being very delicate with putting my pastel down. I'm literally doing lines. I'm just whacking color onto there and building that up, smudging it in, using my hands, using a rusty sort of orangey colors. Again, the shadow, you don't want the shadow just to be one color. As I said previously, that just would look not authentic. So make sure to bring in some color into your shadows. See, so here now we're putting on the light. It's a very light sort of lemon yellow from Sennelier, and putting these little dots of the skin on. Also a variation ranging from an orange to more of a bright yellow to an ochre color. Variation of color, because again that is going to help the whole painting look more realistic. Softening, creating an edge over there because it was a bit too blended. So just used my pastel pencil to create the edge of the apple. So that will bring it a little bit forward from the background. Now, just testing out, I had like a very light coral, just testing that out there, because if you look in the reference photo, you can actually see some of the red's got like a pinky tone to it. So I was just adding a bit of that in there. I had to move the bottom of the core on the front apple because it was sitting way too on the left. So I've moved that into a better position. And then bringing in some more light into the background. See, so I thought I'd finished the background, but as I worked on other parts of the painting, I thought, let's put a bit more light in, which is exactly what I did. So yeah, like I said, easy. I decided I wanted to bring some more leaves over this apple, the third apple. It was just too prominent, so I'm wanting to set that apple back. And a great way to do that would be to put some leaves on top of that. Also, my shadow, it was too prominent. It was jutting out too much. Now, in the reference photograph, it does look very prominent. But if I was painting this plein air, so if I was literally sitting where these apples were, you would see a lot more color in that shadow. Camera lenses cannot see what the eye can see. So I lightened and I put a lot more red and oranges in that shadow. So if you look, it still looks like shadow, but it's not as prominent. It's sitting better. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. Please do check me out on Patreon, and thanks for watching. Till next time, bye bye.